It's something we've all experienced to an extent. For some, it's only happened once or twice in life. For some, it's every day, bro. But in those moments where it seems for potentially endless time frame, your brain's chemistry disassociates either from the personality it's been built up to host, and you ask questions like, what is life? What is this? Why is this? Shit, I'm just a vessel. I can't feel like this again. Can I? What is this? Now, de-personalization differs from its dissociative cousin, derealization. Derealization happens to be when your sensory functions disconnect from the environment rather than itself. Things get blurry, unreal, and if you're lucky, you get both. People who have mental health issues, illnesses, usually experience derealization frequently during high moments of stress, anxiety, PTSD, trauma, and of course, anyone who takes drugs can also bring about these episodes. It can also happen to you if you're just chilling in the backseat on your way to Disneyland. Keep in mind, depersonalization is not psychosis or hallucinations. It's when the neurology finds the personality to be the stranger, not being able to recognize you. Now, when I was a little kid, I used to depersonalize pretty frequently. It would happen to me at least a couple times a year. It would seemingly happen at random times. The last time that I depersonalized as a kid, I was 12 years old, and it hadn't happened for 12 more years until this year. Now, I'm lucky because as a kid, I don't have a basis for PTSD or trauma in those early years. No mental health crises. So why did it take so long for my brain to get a sequel in terms of glitching? One, you probably know by now, I have epilepsy, so my brain malfunctions naturally. Now, keep in mind, whatever you believe about humans having spirits, reincarnation, souls, as we exist, we still function off of a physical vessel, and our software, the brain, is a complex system of pulses, waves, electricity, and cells that work together with the body to get you going. The neurology has to supply the psychology, while the psychology has to believe in the psychology of itself and others. People often say that it's value that makes a good personality. It's the lack of trauma, it's overcoming, it's courage, it's being kind, it's all these other virtues. At the end of the day, if everything that makes you both ethical and non-ethical, if all those things, those people and places, and even the meanings behind those places are stripped from you, you ultimately lose your personhood. In life, as you grow, as you learn, your brain has to build up the physical pathways, trains of thought. And when the circumstances of this world or of your own life, or even just the sensory stuff becomes so overwhelming for a moment that it essentially puts your trains of thought out of commission. And your brain goes, whoa, okay, wait, hold on. Pause this whole, personality stuff. Either we lay down new tracks, new ways of thinking, or we're not going anywhere. Now, when I used to depersonalize a lot as a kid, keep in mind, you go from what ages, 4 to 12. In that time frame, you're going from just gaining consciousness and awareness to, being packed with all of the values, the expectations, and progression that you're expected to go through as a kid. And, all the way up until I was 12, that progression was pretty consistent. And like with most people, when you get to middle school, high school, college, new experiences get added. For me at 12 years old, there were a lot of new contexts that I had to take on suddenly. And for most of us growing up, we get a lot more stimuli as we grow older. But usually those stimuli will match up kind of with the progression that we've been told to expect. You go to middle school, and it's supposed to look like this. It's supposed, you get these certain experiences, that traumatize you, and some good experiences that you look fondly on. You go to high school, you do the same thing. You go to college, you do the same thing. But for me, that was a little bit different. And for most of us, after, this is also why it's hard for kids who move a lot from school to school, from state to state, to build themselves up. Makes them susceptible, again, depression, anxiety. The rug of affirmation and personhood is constantly being pulled out from under them. Now, for me, I haven't moved around very much, if at all, as a kid. And I'm pretty sure, like most everyone else, it feels like you find a group, a group that you can keep for life. Obviously, the torrents of social expectations, natural disasters, whatever the hell you want to attribute it to, that group gets striated, strained, and eventually remixed into a completely different context, and you have to pick yourself back up and figure out where to go from there. We live in a world, a physical world that has a lot of changes and things that we don't fully understand yet. So no matter what education or what lensing in life you think about,
is always going to be some unaccounted for thing that leaves you thinking, what the fuck? And this is in part a big reason why people turn to faith or belief in some kind of benevolent universe that's going to make everything right in the end, or any kind of belief system to kind of put at ease the discrepancies we are going to continue to see in ourselves and the world we're supposed to make sense of. But this is where this train of thought kind of goes. It goes to kind of dark places, because you realize that if it's possible for things to happen in your life that do not make sense under any context that you have been given thus far, how the hell do you keep going? If there are things that can happen to you and others that force you to abandon everything you've been built up to be thus far to survive, but at the same time gives you no new way to build that new person up, you're left, and it becomes easy to depersonalize. But of course, I don't want you to do that, so I can't give you any advice on how to deal with that, because I would be setting up expectations for you, and obviously in the event that those expectations fall short, then the advice was useless.
One can look at this as a double-edged sword. You can either, one, take the opportunity and realize that this is an opportunity to build yourself up to be something, whatever you want going forward. The question remains then, are the tools, are the lensings, and the material realities there to build it up for yourself? So I guess find out.